Now, ladies and gentlemen, to move to a slightly different subject, but that is very much related, I would like to call on the Deputy Political Leader of the United Workers' Party, Guy Joseph, the former parliamentary representative for Castries South East and former Minister of Government, who will, among other things, present to you on the subject of GPH and what is happening as far as our government and another foreign entity is concerned. Mr. Joseph, please welcome Mr. Joseph.
Thank you very much, Mr. Montut. A pleasant good morning to everyone. I am happy to stand before you this morning to address some very pertinent issues. I have to compliment my colleague, Mr. Roche Clark, on the subject that he dealt with this morning, which continues to plague us as far as the governance of this country is concerned. And as indicated, there are so many things affecting us. Of note this week to me was the Labour Party Delegates Conference, I believe is what you call it, where the political leader of the Labour Party appears to have had an overwhelming mandate from his people. Now, I must say that the Labour Party practices a very strange democracy. I am not sure how to interpret what they call democracy in the Labour Party. Because you have a party where no one can challenge the leader, yet still you have to vote. You have no other choice but to vote for one person. Now, when an organization practices this type of democracy, you know that this is the democracy that they want to practice in St. Lucia overall. So the attacks on the leader of the opposition to silence him in the parliament, to get him thrown out of the parliament, to have him under house arrest in the parliament, all of these actions by the St. Lucia Labour Party is to help destroy what true democracy is. And at the same time, so they will tell you, yes, you can vote. You remember Maduro in Venezuela? Yes, you can vote, but you have only one candidate to vote for. You have only one political party to vote for. This is what the Labour Party wants to bring in this country. And that is why in our silent protest, can you imagine going and deliver a letter to the Prime Minister by a former parliamentarian, a well-known figure in St. Lucia, the public relations officer of the United Workers' Party, that the office of the Prime Minister would feel it's okay to call the SSU on those persons? Yet still criminals are roaming this country free and at large. They feel it's okay to shoot people in broad daylight in the middle of Castries. And the Prime Minister indicated to us, he knows everything that is happening in St. Lucia. Why haven't he sent these SSU people to the persons he knows who are involved in the criminal activity? But you're going to send SSU or call the SSU for peaceful protests. Mr. Prime Minister, if you want us to step up the protest to another level, we can. But we have chosen the path of peace. We have chosen the path of doing things in a way that is not going to further damage our country. We don't want to follow suit with Matnik and what they have done. And you said we are part of Europe because Matnik is next door. So maybe St. Lucians need to wake up and take a page from Matnik. But I'm not advocating that. But if you are going to deliver or send the SSU on peaceful protesters, or people, a small group of people, a dozen persons coming to a company dropping off a letter on your behalf, and that is the approach you want to take, then you are almost forcing something on us that we don't want. But I want to tell St. Lucia, we are not going to destroy our country as the Labour Party had the history of doing. You remember Plywood City? They won elections, they still destroyed St. Lucia. You remember the coupe par coupe? The burning of banana sheds, the chopping down of banana plantations? That was the work of the Labour Party. You remember when there should be no protests and no public gatherings, the gatherings during COVID that facilitated the spreading of COVID and hundreds of St. Lucians losing their lives as a result? All of these have been the work of the Labour Party. But what is interesting to me is that the Philip J. Pierre administration has found a new way of destroying this country. And as I go through my presentation this morning, you would understand. I want you to, as St. Lucians, to investigate the information that both political parties are giving you. Whether the information comes from the St. Lucia Labour Party or the United Workers' Party, you should investigate, you should read, you should research and find out whether this information is credible and reliable. And so, I begin on the issue of GPH, because it is time for us to understand what this government is doing. Will there be a future if Labour Party continues in office for the next 2 years? Will we have a future? Challenge the government to say that what I am presenting here today is not factual information. Ministers who are both ministers of the port. And let me explain myself. Stephenson King was former Prime Minister of St. Lucia. Philip J. Pierre was the former Minister of Infrastructure and Port Services. Today, Stephenson King is the Minister for Port Services and Philip J. Pierre is the Prime Minister. So I believe if there are two ministers in government who should understand how important the port operation is to St. Lucia and cruise tourism, these should be the two persons. But I say this with a measure of caution, because after serving 2 terms as Minister of Tourism, the Honorable Philip J. Pierre said he never realized tourism was so important to St. Lucia and to its economy. So maybe he doesn't understand. So let's go into what is before us. It is sad that St. Lucia got honesty and transparency from Alan Chasney, but chose lies and corruption from the SLP. So let's examine the facts that are before us today. And the government, I must say, have never made any information available to St. Lucia on the GPH agreement. The taxi drivers do not know where they stand at Point Seraphine. I understood at La Place Carinage there was one meeting between the taxi drivers there and GPH representatives. But the United Workers' Party, as a reliable opposition, we have some very vital information to share with you this morning. And so, by Cabinet Conclusion number 321 of 2022, dated the 9th of May, 2022, the following Cabinet Conclusion was submitted. Cabinet considered a note dated 3rd May 2022 submitted by the Department of Infrastructure, Port Transport, and noted the report of the committee established to review commercial terms of agreement between St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority and Global Port Holdings. Listen to what Cabinet did, and I know they tell me you should not read too much at conferences. But if St. Lucians are not going to read, then we are going to read to you what the information is. Because I cannot say it as well as it is written. And St. Lucia, we must investigate and we must read. Cabinet approved the formation of a subcommittee to include the Minister of Tourism and Investment as the chairman, the Minister of Infrastructure and Transport, and the Minister in the Ministry of Finance, Economic Development and Youth Economy to finalize the terms of agreement with GPH. The subcommittee is to incorporate technical officers as required and shall report to Cabinet by 15th June 2022. Why am I reading this to you? Because this is not false information. This is not waving blank paper. And I challenge the government to say that what I am presenting here today is not factual information. So a subcommittee, Ernest Hille, Stevenson King, and the minister in the Prime Minister's office or the Prime Minister himself. Now there are two ministers in the Prime Minister's office, Mr. Girard and Mr. Frederick, and the Prime Minister himself. So maybe the Prime Minister and maybe Richard on his program on Thursday night can explain to us which one of the ministers sat on that committee. And it is to be noted, again, the chairman of this committee was Ernest Hille. Now that is the establishment of the committee. There was the formation of a second committee to advise the committee. Now I want you to follow the trend of events. So Cabinet appointed a subcommittee to advise Cabinet of 3 ministers. In turn, they appointed another committee to advise them. Cabinet Conclusion number 195 of 2021. Now, the subcommittee was appointed after. So I don't know how they did it. I'm not giving you things in sequence, but I always give truthful information. So 8th November 2021, a committee was appointed. And I will call the names of everybody on this committee. Because it is time that the people who are involved in doing things in this country and hiding behind titles on boards and other organizations are in the background while the politicians take the licks up front. So I will call. Cabinet considered a memorandum dated 23rd September 2021 submitted by the Department of Infrastructure. Stevenson King is the signatory on this because it came from his ministry. So you think it's only the United Workers' Party that was betrayed by Stevenson King? When you understand what is in this GPH agreement, you will understand how St. Lucia has been shafted by Stevenson King and the Philip J. Pierre administration. And so this it says, and GPH commercial terms agreement. So Cabinet considered a memorandum from the Ministry of Infrastructure and Port, and Global Port Holdings Commercial Terms Agreement for the cruise port operations in Castries. Cabinet agreed to the formation of a committee comprising representatives from the following agencies. And St. Lucia, I want you to pay attention. Here are persons who are on the committee. Mr. Philip Dalsu, chairperson. Then a representative from the Ministry of Infrastructure, Port Transport, Physical Development. Ministry of Economic Development and the Youth Economy. Ministry of Tourism, Investment and Creative Industries. Office of the Prime Minister, St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, Invest St. Lucia Tourism Authority. These are the agencies that would make up the committee to review the GPH agreement. But that's not the only information we have. That is what the cabinet conclusion says. But let me give you the actual composition now. Mr. Philip Dalsu, chairman. Mr. Ivor Daniel, representing Ministry of Infrastructure. Ministry of Economic Development, Mr. Janai Leons, Chief Economist, Department of Finance. Ministry of Tourism, Ms. Donalyn Vite. Office of the Prime Minister, Mr. Michael Wellius, Senior Advisor to the Prime Minister, was nominated. St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority, Mr. Adrian Hille. Note the name, Adrian Hille, and ask yourself, what is the relationship between Mr. Adrian Hille and Mr. Ernest Hille, who is head of the committee representing cabinet? Invest St. Lucia, Mr. Roderick Cherry, Chief Executive Officer, and St. Lucia Tourism Authority, Ms. Leon Charles St. Jules. All of these persons were the persons nominated to serve on the committee. Now here's what the committee did. The committee had 3 meetings. And I can give you the dates of the meetings. January 12th, January 19th, and February 11th, 2022. At those meetings, the committee revised the presentation from the St. Lucia Air and Seaports Authority on cruise development in St. Lucia. Now you see these 2 paragraphs I'm presenting there? That tells us all we need to know. Listen to this very carefully. They revised the plans that SLASPA had. You know, SLASPA developed these plans while UWP was in office. And over a period of time, SLASPA has had plans. There were plans when Labour Party was there also. But there were plans when UWP was there. The SLASPA Master Plan for Castries Seaport and a review of the financial analysis of the commercial terms of agreement proposed by GPH. So this is what this technical committee was doing to advise the cabinet. So they reviewed the proposal. The Department of Finance also provided a financial economic analysis of the proposed commercial terms agreement. Here was the committee's recommendation to cabinet. The committee considered by way of an interim report the rejection of the GPH proposal, which was presented to cabinet for approval on the basis that it does not represent the best economic financial option for the country over the next 30 years. St. Lucia, are you paying attention to what we are saying? The committee recommended the rejection of the proposal by GPH because economically it was not beneficial to St. Lucia for the next 30 years. That is up to 2054. Moreover, SLASPA has, subsequent to the receipt of the GPH proposal, developed a master plan for the Castries seaport, which it intends to use as a guide for development of the cruise port in Castries. Negotiations with prospective investors will therefore be based upon the master plan. So it means that what GPH was coming with was not in keeping with the master plan developed for Port Castries. Here is what should shock every St. Lucian. Since the submission of the initial proposal, that is the proposal to reject what GPH presented, the representatives of GPH met with the Minister of Tourism, Incentives, Creative Industries, Culture, and Information on the 29th of March 2022. There was a cabinet committee of 3. Why didn't the report say that they met with the 3 ministers from the cabinet committee? Why was it only the Minister of Tourism, Ernest Hille, to be precise, that they met with? Everything Ernest Hille is involved in is questionable in every area of his life. So I want Minister Stevenson King and the Prime Minister's office to tell us what they present at that meeting when Ernest Hille met. And here's the bombshell in this. He met with them on the 29th of March 2022, and they submitted a revised proposal on the 1st of April 2022. On All Fools' Day, a report was presented to the minister, and apparently the report was accepted because that is why they went into a deal with GPH. Now, there's more information that you need to know. It is to be noted that GPH has proposed a revenue sharing agreement for 1 to 5 years and 6 to 30 years. The rationale for separating the revenue sharing over these 2 periods have not been clearly explained in the revised proposal. That is what the committee is saying. How could the government of St. Lucia sell out the people's patrimony in this way? The committee is saying to cabinet, they propose a 2-tier revenue sharing agreement, 1 to 5 years. You know how much they propose in the 1 to 5 years? 75 cents US per passenger. We are already making $6.50 on every cruise passenger that arrives in St. Lucia. You're going into a revenue sharing agreement where GPH, St. Lucia will get 75 cents and the 575 will go to GPH. And that proposal was submitted on All Fools' Day, 1st of April. Now you think that's all? SLASPA is required. Now apart from that, here is SLASPA's responsibility. Remember, you have handed over the port to GPH. SLASPA is required to maintain the cruise infrastructure over the life of the concession period. So for the 30 years, SLASPA is expected to maintain the port services. Not for cargo, you know. Over the life of this project, this includes dredging and other maintenance works that will be required to be undertaken. It is strongly recommended that the revenue sharing agreement provides SLASPA with sufficient revenue to cover these expenses. Now, even that, I have a major problem with. We already have our money. This is St. Lucia's money. You're giving it to a foreign entity for him to just give you enough to maintain the port. Presently, the 650 is broken up this way. $1.50 goes to Solid Waste Management Authority. And as I'm on solid waste, they are supposed to be picking up garbage in my community 2 days a week. Monday and Thursday. Monday's garbage meets Thursday. And Thursday's garbage sometimes meets the next Thursday or the Monday. So you get in pickup once a week. Is that an indication that because GPH is collecting the money, that solid waste is not getting sufficient money? And St. Lucia, I'm putting you on notice. If we are not mindful and Labour remains in office, you will now have to begin to pay for the disposal of your garbage. Only a UWP government will prevent that from happening. So, SLASPA has found itself in an arrangement where it must dredge the port, it must maintain the port, but all the money from the cruise is going to GPH. Now you tell me, what kind of minister would sign an agreement like this in a country of ours? I will highlight a couple other areas because I don't want to bore you with too much information because there is time to discuss. GPH, as part of the signed agreement, will work with St. Lucia and Seaports Authority to revise the master plan and provide expertise to look at the possible scenarios for the cargo relocation improvement to improve the cruise experience. So we now have to be waiting on GPH to help us find somewhere, because GPH is already saying we do not want cargo mixing with tourism on the port that we are operating. You find it strange that there are so many containers backed up at the port, that people's cargoes cannot be released in a timely manner, that merchants cannot get quick delivery. And don't call for if you ordered something. I don't know what's going to happen with barrels this Christmas. But this is an indication. SLASPA was very efficient in its operation. Here's what the proposal says again. Immediate implementation of a new head tax of $10 to become effective from the 2024 cruise season would be required to achieve the above agreement, as well as consideration for SLASPA and Government of St. Lucia to receive variable concession fees from year 5 onwards at a rate to be negotiated prior to final agreement. So there we were thinking they were making $6.50 on every cruise passenger, but the agreement says that the fees are going up to $10 per passenger. And St. Lucia will get either 75 cents or $1. So it means that GPH will be collecting $10. So if $1 comes to Government of St. Lucia, they have $9. They said they have 850,000 passengers coming this year. Let's round up the figures. That's about $8 million US that GPH will be making, and they have not spent $1 on the cruise. Now you think that they are making a big investment? Here's what they said, and I want the persons at Point Seraphin to pay attention. It should be noted that it is customary for GPH to run and operate the main shopping facilities associated with cruise, but in St. Lucia's case, Point Seraphin is not desirous of being a partner at this stage. So the owners of the shops at Point Seraphin, in the GPH agreement, GPH is saying, we are the ones to run all the major shopping facilities. So La Place Carénage, Point Seraphin, and every other place where there are going to be major duty-free shops for cruise passengers, GPH is saying, we are the one who's supposed to be running this. So, what will happen to Point Seraphin, we may not know now, but very soon we will know. The government of St. Lucia will be responsible to maintain the infrastructure as necessary, including dredging, for 30 years. GPH shall, throughout the contract, have the right to match any proposal or offers to build any cruise port development in Vieux-Fort and anywhere else in St. Lucia. Did you hear me? So you think GPH will go and build a port in Vieux-Fort to compete with their port in Castries that they didn't spend any money for? Now, final point. There we were thinking all along, talking about GPH investing $45 million in St. Lucia. So remember, it says implementation of the new head tax of $10 will become effective at the beginning of the 2024 cruise period, which just began. GPH has indicated that the increase in the cruise head tax is necessary for them to undertake capital expenditure investment and refinancing of the debt portfolio of $18 million. Now I need to pause here for a minute. This is not the first time Labour has done this. When I came into government in 2006, I found a proposal on the table where Wasco was going to be sold to a French company. I think it was for $1. I cannot remember the exact numbers. There was a discussion about the assets of Wasco being worth $14 million. But the French company was going to buy the water company for next to nothing. I can call his name. There was a gentleman by the name of Nico from the World Bank. And we had a meeting at the conference room of the ministry. It was Ministry of Communications and Works. I was the minister. Wasco was the government, other government representatives, persons from the company, the World Bank. I stood in the meeting and I said, we say that water is life. We are not selling Wasco. And the gentleman from the World Bank, the Nico person, because these people make their deals. Don't fool yourself. They make their deals. And they sell out small countries. So I stood my ground and he tried to rouse up the crowd and the people of Wasco who are waiting their payments because the company was being sold and everybody would be paid their severance pay. And I said to him, you are very lucky that is in St. Lucia you did what you did there. But you ain't sitting in a meeting in this country again to decide. And I called his seniors at the World Bank and they transferred him to somewhere in Africa. He never came back to St. Lucia. And there were enough people at that meeting There were over 40 persons at that meeting who can verify the information that I am giving you. Where am I going with this? So, the government of the St. Lucia Labour Party, they were willing to sell Wasco and allow the new company to double the price of water. And a United Workers' Party government stopped it. Today we find ourselves in a similar situation. That is the MO of the St. Lucia Labour Party. They have doubled the price of each passenger for GPH, and they have handed the pots over to GPH. So why you didn't put the $10 for us? And here's the investment that GPH is making. So SLASPA was owing $22 million. They did not take on the debt of the 22 million, you know. They took, and that's 22 million US. I like to be very precise. Listen to, GPH has further stated that the total investment the company will be making over the life of the concession period is 45 million. Now I want you to understand the English language very carefully, because laws are not as complicated as we make them. So GPH has further stated that the total investment the company would be making over the life of the concession period is 45 million. So if a port has to be built in Vieux-Fort, it must be part of that 45 million. Everything that is to be done in Soufrière has to be part of that 45 million. The payment of SLASPA's debt is part of that 45 million. So when we tell Vieux-Fort, there will not be a port in Vieux-Fort over the next 40 years, because the initial agreement is 30 and the option to renew. So let me give you, so you don't say it's Guy Joseph saying what he wants. Of which 18 million, let me read the whole paragraph and then I will come. GPH has further stated that the total investment that the company will be making over the life of the concession period is 45 million, of which 18 million would be for the refinancing of the debt portfolio of SLASPA and the 27 million for capital investment outlined in item 2 above. Moreover, GPH has emphasized that the aforementioned proposal is contingent upon SLASPA and the government of St. Lucia agreeing to an initial revised and variable concession fee payable to SLASPA over the first 5 years of the agreement. And I have the breakdown. And none of the financial models present any benefit to St. Lucia. So St. Lucia, this is the secret deal that the Philip J. Pierre administration went into. So there we were here in 45 million. 18 million of this 45 is to pay the debt of SLASPA. So SLASPA still have to find 4 million US to clear off the debt. SLASPA must find money to clear, dredge, and maintain the ports. And at the same time, the government, and if you followed our live in Dennery, you would have heard me outlining all the areas. GPH has been given 100% concession on everything. Every dollar they make in St. Lucia, they will not pay 1 cent tax, while we are paying 2.5%. While we are paying $16.50 for fuel, while we are paying high prices at the supermarket. That is why I tell you, this is a sweetheart deal for GPH, where they are going to walk away with more than 300 million US dollars net profits just from this arrangement. And that is if cruise passengers never go past 1 million. St. Lucia, my final point. We will have to get to 7 million cruise passengers a year at $1 a head to make the money we were making already. I want an economist. I challenge anybody in St. Lucia. Let us have an open discussion on this. And I want anybody to show me where there's $1 benefit. You know what the model shows? There's going to be an increase of spend per passenger of $20. But you know where this $20 will be spent? With GPH stores. And they're not paying $1 tax in St. Lucia for anything. How can we keep a government in office today who has sold out St. Lucia? We are being colonized once again in this country under Philip J. Pierre and his administration. That is why this orange march, this orange protest, this flying of an orange flag is to protect the future. We don't care about the victory. The victory will take care of itself. If you do what you have to do, nobody will have to protect the victory. Your work is supposed to protect the victory for you. But we, the United Workers' Party, and every right-thinking St. Lucia, we need to protect the future of our country. I thank you.